Hi, friends. I am super happy that you're joining me today. Yesterday was an epic failure, so I had to regroup and try again today. I'm not technologically inclined whatsoever, so this has been a huge learning curve for me trying to figure all this stuff out. But I think it's important. So, the whole reason I want to do this is primarily because in a standard yoga class, you only get about 60 minutes of instruction. Most of that time, is utilized in adjustments, instructions, and letting everybody chill. But there's just so much information that I think is important, and I feel like this would be a good way to deliver it so I'm not yammering over your practice for 60 minutes. I just choked on my water, so bear with me. Let's get started. This first week, I want to talk about what I like to call Instagram versus reality and how that relates to yoga and your practice. Recently, I started following an Instagram account. Her name is Alexandria Crow Yoga. Her entire brand is really based around what we're going to be talking about today, and all the information that she has I can never deliver to you in just 30 minutes or whatever. But if you get the opportunity and remember, you should follow her because she has information on information on information about why all of this is important and the science behind it and so on and so forth. So she is just a powerhouse of useful stuff in relation to what we're talking about today. Why is this important? This is important primarily because social media runs our lives right now. In the last, I would say, probably 5 years, we've gotten to a place where we live on our phones. That's all we do. That's where we get all of our information. That's where we do everything. There's very little we do today that probably doesn't derive in some form or fashion from a social media post that we saw, marketing, events, all of this stuff. So if we're going to be living in the sea of social media, then we really need to be aware of the accounts we're following and whether or not it is helpful for our practice or harmful to our practice. Now, why would it be harmful? Great question. It's why we're here today. I know in my personal experience, when I started my 200-hour program, I went and I followed a ton of new yoga accounts, primarily because I wanted to see things that I had not been exposed to over the course of my practice, the classes I've taken, and the things that, I was going to learn. In doing so, I realized that a lot of the content that I was consuming was all fitness models doing inaccessible yoga. What is accessible yoga? Accessible yoga primarily means anything that an average person is going to be able to do. Meaning, if you're not hyper flexible, you're not going to be able to complete a lot of these crazy poses that you see over and over and over again. Your body just won't do it. And it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it or how often you do it. If you're not built that way, you're not going to be able to do it. So when we see these images over and over and over from these top name accounts that are showing nothing but hyper flexible fitness models doing these impossible poses, that's damaging because you have people who have not even began their practice looking at this as a standard when it is not a standard and not even something that seasoned pros are going to be able to do. So those people probably won't even begin, and that's damaging. On the other hand, you have people who have been practicing forever and they see that and they think, well, if I just work harder, I'll be able to do that. Maybe, but probably not. And it is setting an impossible standard in our heads of what our practice is supposed to look like. If we stay so focused on what we're supposed to look like, we're missing the whole point. And that is ultimately why it is the most damaging to what we're doing every day. I know that I've been victim of it as well as a student and as a teacher. You see these things and you think, as a student, I'm never going to be able to do that. No, probably not. I've been practicing since I was 18. I'll be 34 next year, next month, next month. And there's a ton of things I'll never be able to do. Now, I didn't realize that 10 years ago. I thought I was going to be able to do it, and I worked hard and hurt myself and did all kinds of things trying to get there. And it just wasn't going to be possible for me. The reasons why can vary from your body type, your genetics, previous injuries. There's a ton of reasons why certain things are never going to be accessible to us. Our body type plays a huge part. Now, I'm not always going to say that certain body types are not going to be able to do certain things, because there are always exceptions. However, if you are shaped a certain way, it does make certain things far more challenging. I have broad shoulders, and one of my shoulders is trash. So there are certain, arm bends that, one, I can't do, and two, if I try, it is wildly painful. It's part of my body type. It is what it is. Genetics, as far as when you get into learning how to stretch certain muscles to be able to do deeper things, some of us only have so much muscle or so much tendon or ... Therefore, it doesn't matter how many stretches you do or how frequently or whatever, you got what you got, and that's your genetics, and we can't change that. So continuing to try to make something go deeper when it's not possible harms us physically and mentally. It's discouraging, and oftentimes we'll do certain things trying to get to a certain destination, and we harm ourselves, and again, that's harmful. On top of being, as we've said, mentally discouraging, one of the biggest things that we want to avoid when we're doing our practice is hurting ourselves. That is one of the biggest things that we focus on, is trying to accomplish certain goals to help you without harming you. My teaching style is definitely what I like to call a progress over perfection teaching style, meaning at the end of the day, I don't care what your posture looks like. I don't care if you're, going from here to here quickly. I don't care how you get into your posture, as long as each time we're making progress without causing harm. The name of my candle company, Ahimsa, it is Sanskrit for no harm, and that we don't, that's the whole purpose of being here. We want to help, not harm. I have a pretty strict rule about no adjustments. That was something that when I was in school to learn, I thought was going to be a super unpopular opinion. As it turns out, there are a lot of other instructors who feel the same way. And adjustments are when, like, you're in a class and you're doing a posture and your teacher will walk around and, move you or fix you. I'm not hating on teachers who do this. However, for my personal practice and teaching style, I don't do it, and here's why. Number one, it's about consent. I think a lot of the times we will say that we're okay with things we're not okay with because we don't want to say no, right? So I don't feel comfortable touching another human being if they're not okay with it. I've seen a lot of teachers have these cool little flip cards, where you can flip it over if you're cool with adjustments or flip it over if you're not. I love that idea. For me, I know that as a student, I was in lots of classes where I was adjusted and I was not comfortable with it, and it just kind of ruined the whole thing for me. So I try to avoid it. So consent's a big deal. Number two, I don't want any of my students allowing an adjustment because they see their friend going deeper into a posture and they want to do it too, so they're going to allow an adjustment that hurts and they won't say anything. Again, back to injury. That's, mentally speaking, we will look at someone else and want to be where they're at, so we will do things that don't feel good, so we can try to get there faster. So my adjustments in class are strictly verbal. I will tell you what to do for your posture, and I will tell you what to do to not injure yourself. Aside from that, your body will naturally progress over time, and that's what you really need to rely on instead of having someone physically put you places that can hurt, and you'll stay in it because as humans, a lot of times we don't want to tell somebody that it's not comfortable. The only time I will, intercept and give adjustments is if I see you about to harm yourself. Again, no injury. So outside of that, I'm not in love with adjustments, and it all kind of ties in together. I love having all students. I love having advanced students, but I would definitely say beginners are my favorite because you really get to watch the progress as it goes. The difference is mentality-wise, we have to remember that someone over here doing this versus what I'm doing, that doesn't mean that person is better at yoga. It means that they look different than me. And the same goes for teachers. If you see teachers on social media who are doing, super flexible twists and inversions and stuff, that doesn't mean that teacher's better than another teacher who is not. It just means that there's a difference. The big reason all of this is important is because not all bodies and styles and practices are going to look the same. When we create a standard in our heads, again, of what it's supposed to look like, it really harms our practice because I know, again, as a teacher, there was a lot I had to swallow about, well, I'm never going to be able to do that, so how can I teach people? Or, I'm not comfortable doing this, so how am I supposed to teach people? And it goes on and on and on. Your time in your practice doesn't mean that you should be somewhere that you're not. And that's also something we really have to focus on is, oh, I've been doing it for 20 years, I should be. No. Should be and what it is versus what it looks like are two incredibly damaging thoughts that we have to remove from our brains, or else we will stunt our growth, as far as what we actually could be capable of otherwise. Deepening. I did that like 15 times prior. Let's go back to that. When you hear an instructor or anyone else talk about deepening your practice, the intent behind saying that is, progression in postures. Again, this can be a damaging thought process because when we stay focused on deepening, we allow injuries. There have been multiple times that I have eaten shit trying to do something that I was not ready to do, but I wanted to deepen my practice. Deepening your practice will happen the more you practice. Again, why this all ties together. If you do your comfort level consistently, your practice will expand naturally. Not looking at homegirl on Instagram, not looking on homie in your yoga class who can do all these inversions that you can dream of. You will get there, and that's the important parts. The longer that we sit and scroll all of this stuff that is not accessible to us, it is really bad for our brains. If you have kids, I know I tell mine all the time, you're going to rot your brain just constantly. But we're the same. We're just as bad, if not worse, honestly, because, we're adults, so we do what we want. So, my challenge for you in the week to come is to go through who you're following. Look at the accounts you're following. And that's not just yoga or fitness related. Go through and see if the stuff that you're looking at on a consistent basis is really doing good things for you in your mind, or if it's kind of trash. I know that in the last probably 6 months to a year, I've unfollowed so many things because the content just wasn't serving me properly. You know, it was putting bad things into my head. And, you know, our brain is where it starts. We can get out here and we can do all kinds of exercises, yoga, whatever. We can eat great and put all kinds of good stuff in our bodies, but if we're putting trash up here, then none of the rest of it matters. It's all very much correlated, and if we're not taking care of upstairs, we're really doing ourselves a disservice. So, this week, go through your social media, figure out what kind of trash you're dumping into your brain and get rid of it. And in the next week after that, as you're scrolling, tell me how you feel. I'm very curious to see. Next week, I have another exciting topic. Exciting to me, really. But I am super glad you took some time to hang out with me today. If you have any questions or anything you want to see discussed, send me a message. Let me know. I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you back here next week.